Hey, thanks for joining. This is Live with Miami's Community News, and our guest today is the Commissioner of South Miami, Josh Liebman. Thank you for your service, and thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me.
So, pandemic is essentially gone, all right?
Evident by the missing window.
Yes, we used to have this little thing right here, and it was wonderful, and we're very fortunate to only had one case here in a year and a half. So, but during the whole pandemic, you still were very much involved in the city and participating and beautifying the city. So let's start with the sculptures that you've got some folks to donate. Can we put a couple of them up there? And maybe Josh, Commissioner, if you could go ahead and explain them when you see them.
Absolutely. So the genesis to this was establishing a sister city with Medellin, Colombia. And most people don't realize that Colombia is the U.S.'s #1 ally in South and Central America. And Medellin happens to be, in my opinion, the best transformation story. And I was looking to do something similar although not to that extent, but when I first ran for office. Medellin went from the murder capital and drug capital of the world to being ranked by the Wall Street Journal as the most innovative city in the world. Time magazine ranked Medellin the smartest city in the world. And Bloomberg awarded Medellin with their International Environmental Award. It may have been the kiss of death, but Condé Nast also in February, just before COVID hit, in February 2019, ranked Medellin as the hottest city to visit. So through establishing the Sister City program, when you look at Coral Gables and you see Cartagena Circle, which is also a result of a Sister City program with Coral Gables and Cartagena, they have the boots.
Can we put another one of those up?
Certainly, and the boots are symbolic of Cartagena. I wanted a Botero because Fernando Botero, we're all familiar with those generously proportioned bronze sculptures. I wanted a Botero to be installed somewhere in the city of South Miami that would be symbolic of the Sister City program. But what I ended up doing was, instead of just installing a single sculpture, I created Columbia Sculpture Garden in recognition of the South Miami Medellin Sister City program. And as a result of that, we were now able to secure sculpture contributions from all over Colombia, and art and donations from both collectors and artists that resided in Bogota or that were from Cali or.
And how many pieces?
We currently have 7. One is in transit, 6 are installed. And what this led to, and I didn't know at the time, but this produced our first visit from a president, foreign or domestic, the president of Colombia.
Let's say that again. The president of Colombia came
for the first time
here.
In 95 years, South Miami received a scheduled visit from a president, and the president of Colombia came to designate this project and designate a Columbia Sculpture Garden. And we originally started with 3 sculptures. My work didn't stop, but the installations were certainly stalled by COVID. We just installed the following 3 sculptures. We have a total of 6, and we have more in the way. And what the beauty of this is, they're all donated, and we're talking about well into the 7 figures in donated art.
Since you're a runner and run over 100 marathons, I know you can appreciate that. As 1954, Roger Bannister had set world records for quarter miles. They did 1 quarter mile world record, the second one, third one, and his coach called out everybody, said he's going to break the 4-minute mile. So in 1954, he broke the 4-minute mile. Before that, no one in the world had ever done that. But the following year, more than a dozen people did that. And then it became, well, of course. So my question to you is, well, of course, all right, that we should do things like that. But you had the vision to be able to create that.
Well, and the opposition, believe it or not, from the commission. But what I think the commission failed to realize at the time is art is what made South Beach South Beach. Consider Art Basel. Art Basel, believe it or not, is much more profitable to the county than a Super Bowl is. And if you look at Wynwood, that went from a dilapidated area to some of the most expensive real estate prices in the country. Art contributes directly to transformation.
So you brought up a really good point. Down in Barranquilla, is that where? In
Cartagena.
In Cartagena, it was. It ranked very poorly around the world.
Well, sorry, Medellin.
Medellin ranked very poorly, right? And then over a period of time, it got better. Wynwood, the same thing. Our downtown Miami, it got bad, and it got a whole lot better.
What was unique about Wynwood is that was really the result of art and art in public places that directly contributed to that transformation. And although I didn't know it at the time, what's so unique about South Miami is now we have the only place in the United States that's uniquely devoted to Colombia. And the reason why I say uniquely, there's plenty of other places that are devoted to Colombia and Venezuela and Ecuador and Peru and so forth. But this is the only place in the U.S. that's uniquely devoted to Colombia, and again, our number one ally in South and Central America.
And you brought up a really good point about Wynwood and art. If I was to say a Wynwood mural type, people would know. It's like
Wynwood walls.
Yes, it's just like, yeah, of course. So you've been able to, and with the, of course, with your colleagues, be able to take part of that park, public park, and be able to bring the sense of beauty to there. And I remember when the first one was there, well, what is this one piece that's there, right? But you had this vision to be able to create an area where people of all different sizes and shapes could look at things and find the one that turned them on, right? So explain to me what was that process and how did you get the artists to donate that?
Simple, just not hearing no, right? But you always have to hear the first time someone says yes. And I have to tell you, I did not do this alone. I had a couple ardent supporters. One is the current Consul General, Pedro Valencia. His sister is a senator, one of the most influential women in Colombia, and his grandfather is the president. And also Dr. Santi Medina. He's a physician at Miami Children's Hospital, and he's also a sculptor, and he happens to be from Medellin, and he's donated a piece. He is our curator.
When did you get smart? That's what I want to know.
I still haven't. My hard work compensates for my lack of intelligence. I was about to say smartness, but I'm not even sure if that's a word.
SARMT. So speaking of the Renaissance, let's talk about the Shops of Sunset, which has gone through several evolutions. And so a year or two or three ago, the commission went through and approved some zoning changes that would create it into something we thought was nice. And then the pandemic and a couple other things caused the sale of that property to another investor. Are there any plans that are out there that have been submitted, and what are the public discussions about what might happen now?
So it's an excellent question. So to take a step back and give you a little context, when you have Publix in a mall, Publix is referred to as an anchor tenant, or when you have Starbucks in a mall, Starbucks is referred to as an anchor tenant. If you're lucky enough to be bookended by Publix and Starbucks, you don't have to do any advertising because those two establishments will generate all the foot traffic. Well, I refer to Sunset Place as the anchor tenant of our downtown. And the reason why that's so important is in South Miami, we are completely dependent on our downtown. Our downtown area accounts for 2/3 of our budget. And to your point, that project was purchased by Federal, and Federal is the oldest and second largest REIT, or real estate investment trust in the country. And you're right, during the pandemic, they unloaded that, took a tax loss, and the developer behind Midtown is the new owner. To answer your question directly, we've been promised several renderings and plans since December 31st, 2019, which is when the project was, or pardon me, Sunset Place was sold. But
it's already 2 years.
Right. Thus far, we haven't seen anything.
All right. So we see the Metro Rail project they built on the top. How many stories was that? Was that 3 stories on top?
Correct. They built student housing on top of the Metro Rail parking garage.
The renaissance that has occurred on that corner is extraordinary. I see the kids walking down the street, single guys, couples walking their dogs all over, beautiful young ladies, right? The colors are so coordinated. And then across the street on the west side, one of the buildings now coordinated the colors there with that. So there's this togetherness that was never been there.
It's urbanism. It's what I like to refer to as putting feet on the street. And that's certainly what we need in our downtown. And that's what adding residential to the Sunset Place project will do to our downtown area.
And before it slips my ADD mind, on the south end of the Metro Rail project, the property that's right up against Sunset and US 1, the vacant one with the piece of art on it. All right, thank you. I think that was Raul. I think. Wait.
Oh, you're referring to the French fries.
The French fries, yes. What's supposed to happen on that county-owned property on that corner?
I think an extension of the mixed-use project. The interesting thing about that sculpture is being a gator, and a 2-time gator. At Turlington Square, we have a similar sculpture, which is referred to as French fries. And there's also one at the McCormick Center in Chicago, which, as you know, hosts the Chicago Marathon Expo.
Just was that, right?
Yes. Well, New York.
Yeah, New York, yes.
Passed.
So somebody that we were talking about marathon. She sent me pictures of the New York Marathon. She was in it. I was burning red, jealous. So, but that area, that's 59th place, right? 59th place.
Yes.
It is magnificent. All right. And when we look back over all those years that we as a community were struggling what to do, it's extraordinary. All right. So my hat's off to the planners that put that together and the years that it took. Just north of there are about 70 townhouses called South Miami townhouses that are going to be, they're 50 years old. They've lived its lifespan. The county owns that land. They're going to be relocating the people and taking those down and putting up some brand new buildings. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. That will absolutely revitalize the area, and the city of South Miami, that area specifically, is just very excited about that project. It's the CRA. That area was designated CRA to attract investment. Well, ironically, after the CRA sunsetted, we finally have investment coming in. So it's going to be a mixed-use project with retail, affordable housing, market rate housing, as well as 52 low income to replace what was there. There's actually 52 townhouses there now. So there'll be 52 low income, some workforce, as well as market rate. So it'll be a nice tenant mix. So, and it'll, again, to your point, absolutely revitalize the area. And if I can mention two other things, I sponsor an initiative to raise the inspection station, raise the structure that was there, and put out a bid for design of a new police station. And we are currently going through that process. We just saw our first rendering. New police station has a hefty price tag on it. But once we have the design,
does that mean we're going to start getting more traffic tickets? So what is the estimated price tag for putting up that new building?
New police station?
No, the other one, the new apartments.
So I'm going to answer twofold. So to answer your question directly, $100 million in building costs. Now, and it is county property, and there is a county art and public places ordinance in effect, but it's in the city of South Miami. Prior to that project getting approved, I passed an art and public places ordinance, which requires the developer to contribute 1% of building costs to the city in art and public places. And considering that the developer is an art collector himself, George Perez, he's very excited about that. So we're going to see $1 million in art throughout the city. Some on that piece specifically, hopefully piece in our downtown, is at least what I'd like to see and what I'm speaking with them about, and a contribution to Columbia Sculpture Garden.
Okay, so let me go. It's a $100 million project.
Yes.
That's just 4 blocks from here.
Yes.
Due east. I told my brother if we lived long enough, we would see it. So congratulations. We've managed to do both things. All right?
Congratulations to you.
Yeah. So there's a school over there.
Beautiful design.
Yeah,
by the
and
way.
across the street from there,
Very
there's
thoughtful
a charter school,
Correct.
right? Ranked in the top 10 throughout the state. It's a little bit higher, but I don't want to.
It's SoMe Somerset.
Yes, and it's great. There's a medical eye doctor that's over there on that corner. Those two folks had the vision to be able to say, let's go over there because we think something is going to happen. And we realize what's happening in South Miami. It's the little pieces that are adding up to a big picture. When the police station moves over there.
No pun intended when you said the Med-Eye clinic had the vision. But Michael, how could you not have the vision when you consider that area had lower real estate values than the immediate surrounding areas? You were in walking distance to a metro rail, and you were bookended by a university and the University of Miami and 2 hospitals, in Larkin Hospital and South Miami Hospital.
It's really extraordinary. And you've been living in this area for most of your, for 30 years.
The general area.
Yeah, this general area for a long, long time. And to see these beautiful things that are happening, it's extraordinary. And on our street here, Marco Drugs is moving down the street. Thank you, City of South Miami, and thank you, Sonia, for making that change and making that happen. And they're supposed to open up the next couple months. Very exciting. The 64th Street from 62nd Avenue to 57th Avenue, new road, bike lane over there, painted green, so even the older guys can see the stuff. You have the 2 buildings that are there on the corner of 58th Place. Nice colors, looks good. And when that happens, it improves the lives of everybody because you look at it and go, well, this is good. People care. So what are some of the other things that the city is going to try to get done so the city of Pleasant Living really blossoms this next couple of years?
Well,
we're going to hold them to it, folks.
Please do. So instead of 2 years, let's extend that to 3 years, because that's when my term will be up. Is 3 years from now, my 12-year. And
Thank goodness. I'm only going to do it one time, folks. And I'm not a politician.
that's right. We're not. Certainly not on the municipal level. We're civic servants, and everyone should remember that on a local level. And we should all govern like we're not up for re-election. That's the true way to effectuate change.
Yes.
But I'd like to see a new city hall project. Hopefully that could help fund the construction of the police station. And there's certainly higher and better use for that property. Even if City Hall continues to exist in that property, it could do so in a third or quarter of the space, especially when you consider we need a new library. And what are we going to do with the police station once we move the police into a new home? So if you look at all of the city halls from Homestead through the city of South Miami is certainly the most tired looking city hall. And another option would be to put it downtown on a surface parking lot and create more of a sort of a
So how do you
Main Street
recognize
feel.
and honor the traditional older cities like South Miami and their city halls, and to say, yes, old timers, we recognize that you feel good about that, but yet be able to take us all of us into now and to the future? Because when we look in the last 24 months, how fast they flew by and the things that we've gone through and the acceleration into the future, it's monster speed. And now there's $19 billion that's going to come to the state of Florida. That's going to happen within the next 5 years. I think it has to be spent by then. There's going to be lots of changes, right? So has the city put their dibs on what they'd like to do when they get some of that money?
Well, personally, there's 5 people on the commission that have to come to an agreement. I would like to see that money go into a police station. I'm big on law and order. I believe our police are our best ambassadors in South Miami, and I believe that they deserve a new home. And to your point earlier, it'll help really revitalize that area. And I believe when a piece of property is given to you or gifted to an individual, a business, but especially a city, that property was given to the city, I believe 35 years ago from the county. When I say it's the old inspection station, that was where you'd go to have your car
Some people don't know that we used to have to do that every year or 2 or 3.
Right. The city has the obligation of activating that property, not land banking it. So I think it's incumbent upon the city to develop that property. And why not develop it for municipal use, the city's use, and the police need a new home.
There's no question that I think governments have a responsibility.
And sorry, and in doing that, we could do that, make it an emergency operations center as well.
Mm-hmm. And when the city moves the police station there, that is going to completely change that area where people are going to go, it's next to the police station, right? Instead of saying it's next to whatever. And that is going to be really very good. And the kids in the neighborhood, they're not going to be afraid. It's going to bring the police closer to the people who need it the most, which is the folks over there, all right? They got their businesses that are there. There are people like all over the place. The cars are all orderly, right? But I got to tell you, the South Miami Police Department, when we call them, as rare as that is, sometimes it's 45 seconds.
Or when someone calls them on you.
That's probably more often. and the extraordinary. And
right, to document that South Miami has an under 2-minute response time, whereas the county, and all due respect to the county, just heavily burdened police department, has average of 37-minute response time. But that time, now granted, by the time the police station is built, traffic will increase. We'll see more density, not just in South Miami, but in the surrounding areas. But having the police station at location will still allow the police to respond quicker than at their current location.
All right. Commissioner Liebman, for years, many years, almost 20, I believe, that there were not any elected officials on the north side of South Miami.
Well, over 20 years.
North side of South Miami, yonder, right?
So there's so many ways I can approach that question. So first of all, east to US, it's the 80-20 rule. East to US 1 accounts for, in a 20% footprint, accounts for 80% of our budget. So how in over 20 years can you believe it, maybe 24 by the next election? How could you only have one elected official come from that area?
Yep.
Again, 20% footprint of the city, where 80% of the budget is accounted for. But what's even more shocking to me is that since I've been on the commission, though some of the names and faces have changed, the addresses essentially haven't. They all come from, they all live, this is bizarre, they all live on 64th Court, within 2 blocks of each other. Everyone can look that up right
really
now.
It says something about tribalism, which is
and a product of a special election.
Yes. So
I refer to that street, by the way, It was just the name was changed to, I believe, Robert Bicycle Bob Welsh Drive. Why is that?
in honor of Bob Welch.
Right, but I
Commissioner.
always wanted to change the name to Political Row.
Yes. So Commissioner Brian Corey was elected last year,
Yes,
right? He's on the north
doing a
end,
fine job.
and he's been trying to bring more of the dollars that were spent down here, bringing them up north. So, but let's look at this next election is going to be when? In November.
That's correct. A year from right today.
Right. It's only been like that a couple
November
times.
2022.
Right? It should. More people are going to be interested in election. More people are going to be going to the city hall or by ballot, and it's certainly going to help change the lack of involvement that a lot of people have, the empathy, the lack of involvement. In Homestead, I think it was 8% of the people voted. All right, for the vice mayor's race, God bless you, Julio Guzman, who won 1,600 people on this side, 1,600 people. I'm sorry, yeah, around that. Very few people voted. Right, in South Miami, typically, what's the vote? What percentage?
2,000. There's 7,000 registered voters, much higher turnout in the previous presidential election, obviously. But you have the presidential cycle, November off president, right, off year, November non-presidential cycle, and then you used to have our February special elections. And I want to add that when I put that item on the ballot, it passed exactly 2-1, 66 to 34%.
Oh, by the way, I do want to thank our sponsor, OG Paint. I get all our paint over there. Thank you, Sue and family, for that. So, yes, sir. All right. So, the city seems to be much more stable than it was 5 and 6 years ago. There doesn't seem to be as much grief that is associated. Some of that may have done to the pandemic, but also I recognize that the people are getting a little bit more mainstream in that, or the appearance of being mainstream. What's your take on that?
So when I first came into the city, again, 10 years ago in February, I really wanted to change. There's a number of things I wanted to do. But to your point, I wanted to change the psychology and the culture. We've all heard of the silent majority. Well, South Miami was governed by the loud minority. We went to a meeting with the downtown business owners to let them know that they're important to us, and we recognize how much they contribute to the city in terms of tax dollars. The first thing I explained to them is I said, there's two people in the city. I said that do not live in the city. They don't own a house in the city. They don't rent a piece of property in the city. They don't work in the city. They don't own a commercial piece of property in the city. They're not in a single board, but yet they have more influence on the commission than all of you put together, though it's been established that our downtown area accounts for 66% of our tax base. So it took me a long time, but we finally changed that culture. And a lot of it has to do with stability of our staff. If you remember, one of my many platforms when I ran was that attrition, 5 managers in a 2-year period. Well, since being elected, we're on our 3rd city manager, and our previous city manager retired. But our previous city manager was the longest serving city manager in the history of South Miami, and our current city manager is doing a phenomenal job. So I would actually attribute what you're saying to, number one, a change in culture, and number two, our staff. And by the way, speaking about attrition, city managers, we haven't had any attrition in our staff. And what I would like to say, because I know you're going to give me the opportunity to say this, is what I said in the State of the City address when they asked me to speak my accomplishments. I said the best part of South Miami isn't something I can take credit for, and that's our staff. We happen to have the absolute best staff, and they're the ones who really make South Miami great.
And the leadership on the administrative part and the leadership on the elected part is what makes us better, because we see that when there were so many managers before, it was like a free fall. It was just like, oh my goodness, what is happening? And so now it is really stable, all right? And no news is good news, I guess, all right? Because we're certainly looking for the bad news. It's hard to find it, all right? Now, good news too, once in a while, all right? So
you can't appreciate the good without a little bad.
Yes. So I think that everybody's done a really good job, and South Miami certainly has risen a lot in the last 10 years.
We've really raised the bar. It took a long time. I was actually speaking with Bill Duquette, the CEO of South Miami Hospital, about that today, and Mia Cordino, the mayor of Pinecrest Wife, and the director of community relations for South Miami Hospital. I was having the same conversation not more than an hour ago with them.
So when we look at cities or areas, we look at signage. We see the cities. I think it was you, right? The green signs, really neat. Fuchs Park, there's a big sign out there, right? The roundabouts, all right? which some of them are really attractive, right? And we look at these changes that are going on. People feel better when they see that. And when this project gets going over here, and it goes from not so good to grand and great, the attitude of the citizens here and the business people are going to be great. When the police station moves over there, it's going to be a great day, and certainly brings up that opportunity. Now, what about that building, the police station? What are we going to do with that? When was that built, the city hall, more or less?
Which is a good answer for you, but the city is approaching its 95th anniversary or birthday. So the city is almost 95 years old. I do not have a good answer for you.
We have a hanging on the wall, the front cover of a special section we did for the city in 1967. That was their 40th anniversary. All right. We have one from their 75th and from the 90th. All right. If I'm lucky, I'm going to get the big one up there. I showed that to my son the other day. He's 35. He's getting married, by the way. And so,
congratulations.
Yeah, thanks. And I looked at it and I said, "Oh my goodness, look at all these years that are there, and City Hall, it's in the one stable. It's never changed. All right. And it's time for us to move forward." By the way, when Charles Skur took over 30-some years ago, the city didn't even have real email back then. I said, how can a city not have it? And it really started back then about how to move the culture into, it's okay not to write with the pen, that you can actually figure out on the computer, present company excluded. So that's it for me, sir. You're doing a wonderful job.
Hey, thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. And for those of you who do not know, the genesis of all of this started when Michael shared the bad idea with me of running for office. I would say 11 years ago, just right a year prior to the election, Michael came up with this harebrained idea.
Yeah. Commissioner Josh Liebman, always a pleasure.
So all of you that do not appreciate me in the commission, you have Michael to blame.
See you guys later.
Thank you.
Enjoy
Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you very much. Have a good time, and happy Thanksgiving, folks.